Good morning. This is a special call budget presentation regarding the 2015 budget. And so we go to item number 1 for the presentation for the Honorable Mayor Bob Buckhorn for the 2015 proposed budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pastor, I appreciated that invocation, although the reference to the status of being the mayor would be disputed by my 8-year-old who thinks I'm a doofus. So we keep well grounded in my house. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Council members, thank you for joining us today. This is the opportunity to tell Tampa's story over the last year, but more importantly about what Tampa's next chapter will be. If we could pull up the budget presentation. We will go through this slideshow as quickly as possible, but I think there is a good story to tell this year as we come out of the wreckage of what has been one of the most devastating recessions since the Great Depression. This slideshow will contain a number of things, the budget highlights. We'll talk a little bit about how far we have come. I will give you the recommended budget overview. We'll talk a little bit about the capital improvement program and the enterprise department budget. Clearly, we have all lived through 3 very difficult years. Fortunately, we followed Mayor Iorio, who left a very, very healthy reserve for the city of Tampa. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate following in her footsteps, because I can also tell you that had she not been as fiscally responsible as she was, the last 3 years would have been much more difficult. And so I use every opportunity to thank her, both personally as well as publicly. She has made all of our jobs a lot easier because of her stewardship of this city. We've continued to invest over the last 3 years in spite of the fact that this has been a hugely painful recession. All of us know friends and neighbors who have lost their jobs. I don't have to tell you about the state of property values and the property taxes that we have received. It has been, by all measures, other than the Great Depression, one of the most significant economic catastrophes that this country has faced, and Tampa has not been immune from it. But there is good news on the horizon. I think a lot of us sense that there is an excitement about this city that hasn't existed in decades. I have been doing this both in your capacity and 8 years before that as the assistant to the mayor, going back to 1987, and I can't think of a more exciting time for this community. This is a city that is on the move. This is a city that is on the rise. This is a city that, in spite of the fact that we have had significantly deplenished capital resources, has continued to invest in a brighter future. Just look at that slide and look at some of the accolades that we have received recently. We are the 8th best city for millennials, as referenced by Forbes. We are in the top 10 for job growth by Business Insiders. We are one of the best American cities to do business in. And as many of you know, over the last 3 years, and certainly during the course of the campaign, I said that we couldn't cut our way out of this budget, that we had already reduced city government, city staffing, personnel to bare bones. Any more cuts beyond that of any significant form or fashion would have significantly impacted our ability to do what we do. So we had to grow our way out of this economy. And by growing our way out of this economy, that means adding value to the tax rolls. That means encouraging people to come and do business with us, to make this community more competitive, to make city government a friendlier place to do business. And I think by all measures, we have succeeded. Permit activity is way up, and the values have increased, giving us the ability to do what I will present to you today. But not only that, we're telling our story to the world. Many of you got to experience the Bollywood award ceremony here. It was an amazing cultural experience for us as a community. Not many of us knew much about the Indian film industry. Slumdog Millionaire doesn't count. But I think after that experience, not only did we tell Tampa's story to over 800 million people who watched that awards, but you also got to see Santiago and I doing something, I'm not sure I would call it dancing, but we were up there sort of moving, creating an international dance phenomena that will not be forgotten anytime soon, thanks to the internet and YouTube. I told my wife the last time I danced was the day we got married, because I didn't have to anymore. But the allure of Priyanka Chopra caused me to get up there and embarrass myself thoroughly, and I'm not sure what Santiago did. It was not pretty, I can tell you that. Our story is also being told in Central and South America. No better evidence than the announcement by Copa Airlines to establish direct flights to Tampa. That was 3 years in the making. When we first showed up there in Panama City with the CEO, Pedro Helbron, he told us in no uncertain terms that you were not on our radar. Tampa was not a player, and they weren't interested. 2.5 years later, they've established direct flights to Tampa 4 days a week. They're going to 7 days a week over the holidays, and we hope and anticipate that they will go to 7 days a week in the not-too-distant future. That provides the gateway to Central and South America for us. Critically important piece of business. Here are some of the highlights. As a result of some of the steps that we've taken, that you've taken in helping us streamline the permitting process and in helping us to encourage development to take place here, building permits are up 10% over last year, 10% both in commercial and residential. Home starts are increasing significantly and anticipated from 14 to 15, an additional increase. Total permit revenue is up 9%. Project values are up 45% from fiscal year 13, and we have experienced in the last year $1.3 billion in new construction. That is hugely helpful for us. Some examples of that, and I know a lot of you have been here to experience this, the most amazing transformation of what was one of the most significant structures in downtown Tampa that has been transformed from an abandoned building that was costing us $100,000 a year just to keep the AC on and cut the grass to what I think will be a landmark destination and a rehabilitation, an award-winning, I hope, rehabilitation of the old federal courthouse by Gary Prosterman with private capital, $25 million of private capital being invested in our community. That building is now back on the tax rolls, and for those of you who have not seen it yet, it is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I can't tell you how proud we are of not only what Mr. Prosterman has done, but what your staff has done, led by Mr. McDonough, to make that process easy for people who believe in this community. Some additional highlights. We anticipate over the next 12 months, 5 new residential towers will be under construction or breaking ground. There are 2 on Harbor Island, and I know this council approved unanimously 2 weeks ago the ability for Related to move forward. I would hope that you would continue that forward progress and not be distracted by obscure legal maneuvering. That is an important building for us. Related is an important investor in this community. They have done Pier House. George Perez and Related almost single-handedly have transformed the Miami skyline. They are a quality developer, and we need their investment in this community. So you have 2 buildings on Harbor Island. You have 2 in Channelside, one of which is about 10 floors up already. And then potentially, thanks to this council, we have the residence at the Straz, which will hopefully start in the not-too-distant future. 5 new buildings, bringing young people and young professionals and empty nesters into our urban core, transforming what at one point was a city that rolled up its sidewalks at 5 o'clock. This is something that I know all of you are excited about, because certainly I am. I know many of you have been down there to see what is taking place at what was an abandoned building, the Waterworks building. As all of you know, Richard Gonsmart won the RFP for that building, has invested significant millions of dollars into that. We are redoing the park right next to it. We have dug the spring out, so the spring is now flowing crystal clear. That pond that you see there that we built, that's a second pond that will open up to the river. The second day that pond opened up, there was a mother manatee in there with her calf. I think this restaurant and this park, when it's completed, will be a destination and will complement everything that has been done before. So you will literally have from Cotonchobee Park all the way to the Waterworks Park, a really, really attractive venue for many of the types of things that we now see in Curtis Hickson Park. As a result of this, you're starting to see construction in the Tampa Heights area. Many of us remember, certainly Councilmember Miranda was there when we did the initial rezoning for Tampa Heights. It is being resurrected. They are repointing the brick on the old trolley barn, and I anticipate in the next couple of months some very, very positive announcements about developments that will take place there. The Riverwalk, something 6 mayors and 40 years in the making, will be completed by mid-January of this year. Started with the late Billy Poe, as we all know, and I was hoping that Mayor Poe would be there for the completion, but we will certainly honor his contribution. As many of you know, Mayor Poe started the Riverwalk selling planks to citizens who could buy the planks for $50 and put their names on it, or their families' names on it. What he would have seen had he lived to the completion of this will be an amazing transformation of our downtown core, and I think will lead to the deployment of significant private sector capital along the waterfront. That will be a project that all of us should be proud of and will return the focus of our development efforts to the waterfront as it should be. Moving across the river, as many of you know, we have joined with the Tampa Housing Authority to embark on a project that I think will be transformative. My goal is that the river be the center of everything that we do, and that 10 years from now, our urban experience will start at what was the Armory, which will become the Jewish Community Center's community center, and stretch all the way through North Hyde Park, all the way to Columbus Avenue, encompassing historic West Tampa, and flowing all the way through to Ybor City and Seminole Heights to the north. Part of it is taking the 150 acres on the west bank of the Hillsborough River that currently contributes probably less than Derek Jeter contributes in property tax. That entire 150 acres throws off merely $150,000 a year in property tax, $150,000 in property tax. That 150 acres is owned entirely by one governmental agency or another. It is either the Housing Authority, the City of Tampa. There are 3 schools that are located there that will remain there. Hillsborough County has a building on a piece of property that we own, that we have a reverter on. And I think the opportunity to transform that 150 acres, to rebuild public housing, to change the environment in North Boulevard Homes, an environment that is dangerous, that is crime-ridden, that is gang-infested. When I'm out there in the middle of the day and a 4-year-old has just been shot by 2 knuckleheads deciding to end a dispute with gunfire in the middle of the day, something's wrong with that environment, and those young people in North Boulevard Homes deserve a better life. We're going to try and give them that in conjunction with the Tampa Housing Authority. It will be a very, very competitive process to get a Choice Neighborhood Grant. Unfortunately, we've been successful already with Encore. We received one of the largest Choice Neighborhood Grants in fiscal year 12 that allowed the Housing Authority to do what they are doing to transform Central Park Village. We will be competing with cities and mayors all over the country for the fiscal year 14 Choice Neighborhood Grant. The 13 grants have just been awarded. The 14th cycle will probably start in the fall. We will put together, in conjunction with the Housing Authority, the best proposal that we can, wrapping social services in there, wrapping job training, wrapping economic opportunities, because we are not going to simply rebuild public housing. We're going to rebuild lives. We're going to rebuild a neighborhood. And I think we're going to pay homage to the historic West Tampa neighborhood, as well as the historic nature of Main Street, which for years was the heart and soul of the African American community. And so I think if we are able to do that, if we are able to get that Choice Neighborhood Grant, I think that will be a legacy that all of us combined would be very, very proud to leave to this community. We're going to start this year on the West River Trail. As many of you know, we already have the bulk of the easements on the west side of the river, beginning at Plant Park. We have the easements behind Tampa Prep. We're in the process of revisioning Julian B. Lane Park with the help of the community. We want that trail to start at Plant Park and run all the way up to Ricks on the River. Not the same as the Riverwalk side, but a trail that would allow people to access that river and enjoy the river, to run, to jog, to walk, to do whatever they want to do. It is important that we not only celebrate that waterfront, but that we enhance it as well. We've been very aggressive, thanks to the support of City Council and the neighborhoods, on code enforcement. It is the issue that, having sat in your seat, that I know that you deal with probably more so than certainly I do. Your constituents interact with you, and that is an issue that I know affects every neighborhood in this community, and you have been very, very aggressive about attempting to deal with it, about attempting to streamline the codes, about helping us with the process, about supporting us when we come to you with budget increases for additional personnel, and I think it's working. I think if you look at this screen and see that 85% compliance within 21 days. We've cross-trained solid waste employees to issue citations. We've bought additional front-end loaders to help with the debris removal. What Jake Slater and his shop, Sal Ruggiero, have done since we have cleaned up Clean Cities. It is a finely tuned machine now, and I think it is making an amazing difference out there in the communities. Just illegal dumping sites alone, which are largely contained in Councilmember Reddick's district. It's an issue that has plagued East Tampa for decades. In 14, we cleaned up 496 illegal dumping sites. In 15, we anticipate that we will clean up over 506 additional dumping sites. But it's more than just cleaning up and issuing citations. It's training neighborhood leaders how to be better neighborhood leaders. As many of you know, we started the Neighborhood University this year. It was something that I had committed to do. It has been very successful. We are starting our third class in September with about 50 participants. We've had 2 graduating classes already. I think what we are doing is building that next generation of neighborhood leaders to replace those amazing men and women like Margaret Veazey and others who came before, who have been fighting the fight for 25 years and are ready to pass that torch to a new generation. We are building that new generation. We are training them. We are teaching them how to interact with government. We're making them aware of some of the department heads and introducing to them so that they can put a face with a name. And I think for generations to come, that will be a positive impact for this community. We've also embarked on landlord training to help landlords be better citizens and to teach them what to do and what not to do. Obviously, there will be bad landlords that will not attend the training and will not comply. But for the bulk of the people who are owners of rental property, who attempt to do the right things, we are there to help them and help facilitate their experience. We have aggressively, and I underline aggressively, taken on a neighborhood that is desperately in need of our help. Sulphur Springs, but for our intervention and the intervention of a lot of the not-for-profits, is a neighborhood that was teetering on the edge. All of you know it. You drive through it. Certainly Councilmember Reddick knows it. It is in his district. Certainly Councilmember Monteleone, who borders that district on the north end and experiences what happens as bad things migrate, can attest to it. Sulphur Springs would have collapsed had it not been for the work that's going on there. We embarked on the Nehemiah Project, targeting a neighborhood that desperately needed it. We have a huge number of community partners that are in there with us, helping. For the first time in certainly my experience, this is not a siloed effort with community partners doing their own thing. This is everyone's on the same page, everyone is measuring the results, everyone is participating, everyone is talking, and it is having an impact. We've identified 92 structures in Sulphur Springs that are able to be demolished. We have already demolished 47 of them. We've constructed 11 new homes in private partnership with home builders. This is an amazing statistic. In the last year, we have removed 193 tons of debris just from the Sulphur Springs neighborhoods. 193 tons of debris. You know what that means? That means that those couches that are in the alleys, that means that furniture that's thrown out on the front yard, that means that junk and overgrowth that's accumulating is gone, and would not have been gone but for the efforts of code enforcement and clean cities. They deserve an amazing amount of credit for really being aggressive about this and going after it in a way that is making a difference in the quality of life for the people that are living there. 193 tons. That is an amazing number. We're lighting up the streets. Many of you were with us when we launched the Bright Lights and Safe Nights. We committed to 8,500 new streetlights in the city of Tampa. We are currently have already installed 3,900 lights. It's making a difference. I get stopped by people all the time who say, my neighborhood it's safer. I can go out at night because you lit up the streets, and the bad guys don't want to be there when the lights are brighter and they can't engage in their illicit activities. Thanks to Chief Castor and the Tampa Police Department in the Sulphur Springs area, because of targeted law enforcement, crime is down 20%. That's even more than down citywide because of their focused efforts. It has been a team effort, and it is making a difference. Now, we're going to deal a little bit with the legacy of this recession. Since 2008, this city government has reduced its employee count by 700 employees, 713 to be exact. The bulk of that was done by Mayor Iorio during the beginning steps of the recession. We are doing more with less money and less people, and we're not missing a beat. And that is a tribute largely to the people that are behind me and the amazing 4,500 employees that we do have that get up every day to do a job, a tough job, with less resources and less manpower. We've had to defer over the last couple of years public safety vehicle replacement, as well as replacement for fire apparatus. This year, we are budgeting $4 million for additional police vehicles and another $1.1 million for additional fire apparatus. As a result of this recession, we have not been able to do a lot of the long-term maintenance of stormwater, road resurfacing. We've had to push it out because we just couldn't afford it. I think certainly those are the two issues that I hear more than anything in this community. Stormwater is a problem. It has always been a problem. It will continue to be a problem just because of the topographical nature of this community. We have parts of our city that are in a bowl, some of whom are represented by Councilmember Cohen, some of whom are represented by Councilmember Monteleone. We can't fix it all, but we have deferred long enough some of the more critical things that we need to do, and we are making a commitment in this budget, either using commercial paper or by investing in general revenues to make a difference and to do something about filling potholes and fixing drainage and stormwater issues. You know, I hear it every day. Part of the problem has been in the last year because of the rainfall. It has exacerbated our road resurfacing issues significantly. The amount of rain has caused it to seep underneath the roadbed, to erode the roadbed, which leads to depressions and leads to potholes. We have got to start that process to get some of those things fixed. What you see here is how we ended up, certainly at the beginning of this process, dealing with what we had hoped we weren't going to have to deal with this year, which was a deficit of about $6.3 million. Some of the ways that we anticipate that we are fixing it is that we have been able to diminish our pension contributions because of the performance of the marketplace. We have a down payment of, or a repayment of a CRA loan that was constructed during the IORIO administration. They borrowed from the downtown TIF. There's about $4 million that they borrowed that is being repaid from that TIF. We still have about $3 million to go, but we are taking $1 million of that and applying it this year. That is largely because of the growth in our downtown area. The end result of this, council members, is not only are we not going to tap reserves, we're going to contribute about $1.3 million back to reserves this budget year. I know that has been a concern for all of you. It has been a concern for me. We worked hard to make sure that we didn't have to tap reserves again. And so I know that you guys will be happy to know that we are on that road to recovery, and that no longer are we going to have to tap the reserves, but that we are starting to replenish the reserves, which puts us in certainly good financial position. Fund balance you can see here on the screen, starting in 2011. Fortunately, as I indicated earlier, Mayor Iorio left us in relatively good position as it relates to the reserves. The rating agencies generally want 20% held in reserves. We have consistently tried to keep it at 25%, in spite of having to tap some of those reserves over the years. Certainly the last two budget years we have had to do that. As you can see by the fiscal year 15, that red line is going up, which is a good thing. As we start to replenish it, the rating agencies recognize that in spite of some very, very difficult budget years, that we have not dropped to a point where we would be at risk. We prefer to err on the conservative side. We like to keep it at 25% and above, and we have done that this year by replenishing $1.3 million in the reserves. Some of the projects that we anticipate doing, some of the projects that we have deferred for a long time, particularly stormwater and road resurfacing, we're going to look to other options to help get those done and get those done quicker. Historically, we've faced three options when it comes to major infrastructure projects. We've had the do-nothing option, which, as we all know, is not an option. Unfortunately, over the last couple of years, we haven't been able to do as much as we would like to have done. We have the pay-as-you-go option, which doesn't allow us to do major projects because you can't accumulate enough capital to be able to do major infrastructure projects. There has been the long-term debt issue, which we also prefer not to do if we can avoid it. And there is the short-term commercial paper route, which allows us the flexibility in today's economy, given that the rates are so low, and the cost to borrow money is so cheap, gives us an affordable option to do some of the long-term infrastructure projects that most of us believe need to be done. Some of them will include the 43rd Street drainage outfall improvements. This is a stormwater issue in East Tampa. Largely, it's a multi-year project that will help alleviate some of the stormwater issues on Hillsborough Avenue, Adamo Drive, 50th Street, and 40th Street. It's a big project. It's a big project. You could never get this done if you did pay-as-you-go or if you did nothing. The Upper Peninsula Regional Drainage Improvements, and that would be in Councilmember Cohen's district as well as Councilmember Miranda. It's a multi-year project again that will address flooding issues affecting over 1,000 acres in that section of town. Some of the neighborhoods include Palmacia Beach Park, Hyde Park, and some others. It is a project, again, long-term investment, long overdue. We haven't been able to do it because of the cost of it, because of the recession. We're going to do it now. You've got the Drew Park project that is underway, that is in Chairman Miranda's district. As many of you can see, if you have driven through there, it has vastly improved the quality of life of the people and the businesses that live there. And aesthetically, it is a huge improvement over what was there before. Watrous Canal rehabilitation. Thanks to some help from the Florida legislature, who committed some money to this, we're going to go in and make some improvements to the Watrous Canal. That also would be in Councilmember Cohen's district. There are 3 projects that really have been problematic for a number of years that affect specific neighborhoods that we're going to deal with. One on Kensington Avenue, one on Marjorie Avenue, and the last one is on Edison Avenue. Now, all of you have been getting emails from neighbors associated with this. It's a long-standing project that is being exacerbated. Part of it is because the aquifer is higher in that area, certainly in Edison, which has led to some issues that the neighborhood, rightfully so, is really concerned about. We're going to get in there and fix those 3 things, which I think will probably bring a lot of relief to the folks that live along there. They're not cheap, but we're making the commitment to do it. This slide shows the significance of what we were proposing this year. I mean, if you look at where we were in fiscal year 14 and on the stormwater capital projects funding, we were at $15.5 million. If this budget passes and this council is amenable to it, we will increase that to $21.1 million. That will go a long way to help resolve some long-standing infrastructure issues. We have also included in this an additional $200,000 for maintenance for ponds, an additional $200,000 for increased maintenance for ditches and pipes. The schedule for cleaning of ponds and ditches and pipes is not where I would like it to be, and we need to shorten that time frame. So instead of a 10-year window, we reduce it down to a 5, 6, 7-year window, and we are making a commitment to do that. That is particularly true in Councilmember Monteleone's district, where pipes and ditches get overgrown and they haven't been maintained at the level we had hoped we would be able to do. We are making an effort to do that right now. This building that we're in today needs a little love. Matter of fact, it needs a lot of love. Haven't spent this much on love ever. I'm not even going there. But this historic structure, this lady that we are here with today is in need of some repairs. It is not going to be cheap. But like a lot of our historic structures, and you're going to hear me reference one very shortly, we've got to do it. We don't have a choice. It is a historic building. It is our city hall. It is your office. We have got some significant improvements that have to be made to this building. They cannot be prolonged. They will just be exacerbated if we don't do anything. Plumbing, HVAC, we've got to seal the exterior envelope. We've got to redo some electrical. It is what it is. I mean, there's no other way around it. We have got to fix it. And so it will not be inexpensive, but as part of investing in our infrastructure, I think this is something that we have an obligation to do. It's not sexy work, but we have got to maintain this structure in the fashion that it deserves. More love. Cascading Pool. Amen. Amen. I want to see you in that Speedo, Mr. Councilmember Reddick. Although the picture, yeah, I may decide to reverse my decision if I do see it. But this has been the subject of great discussion. I appreciate the passion for this pool. As mayor, I'm often forced to choose between passion and the bottom line, and for the last couple of years, the bottom line has won out. This was not a decision that the city could afford at the time. I recognize that it is a historic structure. Like this building, I think given the opportunity to bring it back to life and to provide an asset for that neighborhood that has lost this asset for basically decades, is a positive step in the right direction. And so what I would ask is approval that we fund the construction and design drawings this budget year. And then you have my commitment in next budget year that we will fund the construction of the pool itself. We hope that we can have it open by spring of 16, spring or summer of 16. That would allow the pool to be usable. It is a great building. It is where Charlie learned how to swim. Those water wings are something else. And,
at my age, it ain't have wings.
And Councilmember Miranda has spent a great deal of his youth there, and so, as did a lot of people in this community. And so I think not only for previous generations that remember that place fondly, but more importantly for future generations, the resurgence in this economy has allowed us the ability to do this, and so we're going to make it happen. And Councilmember Reddick, I appreciate all your input. I think this will be an asset for the community, and particularly for those young people who need to learn how to swim. And if you look at the statistics in communities of color, particularly African American kids, the numbers of drownings are well beyond what they are for majority communities. These kids need to learn how to swim because potentially it will save their life. And so we are going to go fix it, and we're going to make it right, and it better not leak. Otherwise, there will be heck to pay. But we hope to have it open by summer of 16. Perry Harvey Park, which you guys just approved last week, moving forward finally. There's been obviously a series of delays. That is unfortunate. I think the compromise that was worked out will allow us to move forward and build a park that will be respectful of the history of Central Avenue and pay homage to the leaders in the African American community, some of whom I knew, but really deserve a park that measures up to what they have given to this community for decades. I think it will be a really popular venue and will be a great transition from Encore into downtown. And so for us to be able to do that, we are proud to do it, and we look forward to starting very soon. I think you will have, hopefully, documents in front of you in the not too distant future that will allow us to start moving dirt on that site. Julian B. Lane Riverfront Park, we are in the process of community engagement right now, getting ideas for that. 25 acres in the urban core. It's one of the biggest parks that we have. It too will not be inexpensive, but it too deserves better than that. And I think the opportunity to recreate that environment, to allow the neighborhood to enjoy it, seniors in the neighborhood to access it, but also to create an environment where people want to come and celebrate and enjoy the river on the west side and link all of the other assets that we have there, I think is transformative. We've got a number of things that we're involved in as it relates to bike and pedestrian programs. Obviously, the bike share launch will be in approximately a month. We'll have 30 different rental locations, over 300 bikes that will allow out-of-shape folks like me to get on a bike and get healthy. Our bike pedestrian program, we've doubled the number of bike lanes over the past 3 years. We've completed over 44 miles of walk-bike projects, and we have another 17 miles that we anticipate anticipate being completed. Again, you know, sidewalk investment, we got another $2.1 million in sidewalk investment. I think it's an exciting opportunity to not only enhance our transportation system, but to encourage people to get out and to get healthy. Some more major investments that we are going to be doing this year, and this one, like road resurfacing and like stormwater, is something I hear about every day. We're going to fix Cleveland Avenue. For those of you that live on the south side of town or who drive Cleveland on a regular basis, it is like the mogul event in the Olympics. It's got a series of problems there. It's not just potholes. It's not just depressions. You've got stormwater underneath there that is going to have to be fixed. It's not an inexpensive fix, but it needs to get done, and we're going to do it. It's been long overdue, but we're going to do it. Road resurfacing, we're adding $4 million to the road resurfacing budget for a total of $12.2 million. That will allow us to do citywide an additional 21 lane miles of roads to be repaved, for a total of this year 63 miles of road lanes that we will repave. It is, like the other things I've referenced, long overdue and needed desperately, and we're going to fix it. This is a chart that I'm pretty proud of. This is the investment in neighborhoods over the last 3 years. As you can see, when I got here in 2011, we were investing about $10 million in neighborhood-related activities. This year's budget, we will invest over $18.7 million in the types of quality of life issues that make a difference in the lives of the people that we represent. Those are the people that you hear from. These are the nitty-gritty kinds of things that make a difference in people's lives. You know, this is not the big high-rise towers. This is things like pothole repair, road resurfacing, parks and recreation, infrastructure improvements. These are the nitty-gritty kinds of things that make a neighborhood better and make a city better. We have almost doubled this budget since I took office. And if you look at where it was in 2003 at $2.6 million to where we are today in 2015 at 18.7, it is a significant increase. These are some of the projects that we anticipate funding. I would also add that we have put in $200,000 in our transportation budget to fix an issue in West Meadows that has been ongoing. There was I don't want to say dispute, about who had responsibility for maintenance of some of the traffic and the road signs up in the West Meadows area, because it is a CDD, as many of the neighborhoods in Councilmember Monteleone's district are. Ultimately, it was decided that city had responsibility. Those signs up there need a lot of help, as a council member can attest to. We're putting money in the budget to make sure that we go in there and fix those. All right, this is sort of the big picture view of where we are. It shows you how we spend our money and how which departments are spending it. The gross budget for this year is about $1.2 billion. The net budget's $876 million a year. This year's budget is a $45.3 million increase over last year's budget. Now, $34.7 million of that is infrastructure improvements. About 11 million of that is just the growth of government. That is a 1.2% increase in the cost of government. I think that's pretty darn good. So this is a government that is lean, and we are remaining lean. If you can imagine, I review every hire that we make. I review every travel voucher that is submitted, because I know, having been here for a while, that if you allow the incremental growth in the number of full-time employees, or some of these ancillary things like travel requests to grow exponentially, then that 1.2% becomes 5%, 10% very quickly, and you have a significantly larger personnel budget, which we all know drives a lot of what we do here. Much of our expenses, the vast majority of our expenses, are personnel related. I would submit to you that 1.2% growth in the size of this government is very, very conservative, on top of the fact that the next slide will show you that we have kept millage rate the same in the city of Tampa since 1988. We have not raised the millage since 1988, which I would submit is probably something that very few governments have the ability to say. This fiscal year, the average assessed value of a house is about $137,000. Last year it was about $128,000. Now, this is how we found ourselves in this predicament. If you think about why we've had to defer infrastructure projects, just look at this slide. In 2007, we recouped $166 million in property tax revenue, which all of you know is largely what drives our budget, drives our revenues. We don't have personal income tax in this state, so local governments are largely funded by property taxes. If you look 2007, $166 million, and then you look at 2012, that had dropped to $119 million. Now, we haven't stopped doing anything that we used to do. We have continued to do more. We have been more productive, but we've been doing it with less money and less employees, and that is largely a tribute to the people who are here behind me. These are the folks that make this place run. These are the folks that allow us to win those accolades as one of the most amazing cities in America. These are the people, along with the thousands of others that are out there on the street right now doing their job, that allow me to stand up here and present a budget that is balanced and that is investing in our future. You should be pretty darn proud of the people that are here behind me. This next slide shows you where our money gets spent. The big purple area is these two people right here. This is the vast majority. This is the vast majority of our expenses. 62% of our general revenues are dedicated to public safety, and rightfully so. We can't have a great community if we don't have a safe community. We can't be one of America's most exciting cities if we don't have a city that's safe. If we don't have a city where fire rescue is able to respond to critical emergencies. I would submit that our fire and police departments are as good as anybody in the country. And I think all you have to do is look at the reduction in crime rates over the last 10 years, largely under the leadership of Chief Castor. And we are a much safer city than I would submit almost any place in America. And we couldn't be happier for it. So they get a lot of money, but I think it's worth every nickel of what we give them. This shows you how we've kept our FTE, our full-time employee count, steady. I am not going to grow this government exponentially. I am not going to allow this government to do what governments historically have done, which is basically binge and purge. During the good times, they add bodies. When the good times end, and inevitably they do, they end up having to lay people off. And that is not sustainable. It's not fair to the people that we hire. We need to make sure that we maintain a government that is lean, that is efficient, that is doing what it can, but that we not arbitrarily add bodies to the payroll, because bodies mean money, bodies mean pension contributions, bodies mean health care. We're going to do what we do. We're going to do it better than anybody can, but we're going to do it with a small, efficient city government. All right, good news on the pension front. Our pension contributions declined significantly this year, largely because of the performance of the stock market, which we obviously are tied to. From $23 million last year in 14 to 18.6 this year. I would point out one of the most important statistics in this, and there's a lot of discussions about pension reform over the country. I want you to look at the funded ratio here. General Employees Pension Fund is funded at 99.5%. Fire and Police Pension, on the next page, is funded at 93.7%. Fire and Police Pension, among 7,000 public pensions in this country, is rated as one in the top 1%. I think you should be really proud of the fact that our pensions are healthy, they are sound, there is no unfunded liabilities that will put us at risk down the road. Thankfully, every mayor that has come before me has made the contributions that they are obligated to make, unlike some states and some cities that have taken what they call pension holidays, where the city doesn't put in its required contribution, and they bet basically on the stock market performance to cover that deficit. We don't do that. We fund what we are obligated to fund, and we will continue to do that. We owe it to the retirees and to the folks in the pension, and we're not going to let that pension fall into a situation like Jacksonville, where they're 40% funded versus City of Tampa, where we're 93 and 99% funded. That is good news for us. Now, there's more good news on the healthcare front. If you look at the rate of annual costs for healthcare costs, everyone in the country is experiencing this. We experience it in our own families. Certainly, governments experience it on a much larger scale. As many of you know, we were very aggressive when I got here about establishing healthcare clinics, about establishing wellness programs. The end result is, if you look at the cost of healthcare, you look at the increased cost of healthcare in the blue line. Had we not done anything, we would be at $64 million. Because of what we did, we're only paying $53.7 million in healthcare costs, which I think is a step in the right direction. It's not, the cost of healthcare is not diminishing, but we are slowing the rate of growth because of the proactive, aggressive steps that we are taking. Those healthcare clinics have been a godsend. And in the last, in fiscal year 13, over 3,000 employees, our employees, participated in the personal health assessment. They are using those clinics on a regular basis. They are convenient. We put the clinics where they live, close proximity to where they live. I think we have one up on Himes, and we have another one out in Brandon. Our employees, your employees, are using them. They are healthier because of it. That is a good thing. Our costs are diminishing because we are proactive about this, unlike other governments that perhaps chose to do nothing. This is an example of that. This is an indication of medical trends. If the premium increase is less than the medical trend increase, then governments are using reserves to help pay for this. As you can see, we are doing just fine on our healthcare costs. We're going to continue to be aggressive about promoting these clinics and promoting wellness and trying to get our employees to do things like cease smoking and other things that are not particularly good for their longevity. Here is a chart that we show every year just to remind people the correlation between funding for police and fire versus what we generate every year in property tax. We generate $132 total million in property tax, and the cost of our police department and our fire department is $217 million. Now, this budget accommodates some changes that will occur in the police department as a result of the DROP program. I have given authorization to hire 30 additional police officers. As many of you know, we will be experiencing a significant loss of some of our more senior police officers over the next year as they retire. That leads to two things. That leads to a need to overhire to get officers ready to fill those slots, and it also leads to an increase in payout for sick and vacation time, because these senior folks have been accumulating this for 25 or 30 years, and so they will walk out the door with a significant payout per the contracts and per the agreements of the DROP for both vacation and for sick time. So all of those things are budgeted in this particular budget. We are also budgeting, as I indicated before, $4 million to replace a significant number of the police vehicles that need it. Some of our capital improvements that we will be making are listed up here on the chart. They range from T&I to convention center and facilities management. We can't do everything for every department. At the beginning of this process, I ask every department to submit their wish lists. I feel like Santa Claus sometimes looking at my 8-year-old's wish list. But I think the departments recognize that we are still not entirely out of the woods. I asked them to rank their priorities. This year, we also asked them to take a 5% reduction. 3 years ago, we started at 15%. And that is one of the ways we were able to balance the budget. This year, we asked for 5. Not all of them, when it was all said and done, had to take that reduction. It was a situation where we have to prioritize what we do. Some departments got a little bit of a haircut, others did not. But I think it was based on certainly the priorities of our city and appropriate expenditures given where we are financially. This, hopefully you'll be able to see this better. What we have done here is put up a map of each of the single-member districts, indicating all of the projects in your district that we have either ongoing or projected for, actually this is for fiscal year 15. This is Councilmember Cohen's district. The map that you will get in the budget will indicate to you whether it's a water project, whether it's a wastewater project, whether it's a road project, whether it's Parks and Recreation project. So you will know exactly what it is that's projected for your budget, and I think you can happily talk about it as you travel throughout the city and interact with your constituents. This is Councilmember Reddick's district. As you can see, it's a pretty busy place. We've got a lot of work going on there. Some of these are not sexy. Some of these are not things that particularly people get enamored about, but they're things that have to be done, and they represent millions of dollars of investment in our infrastructure. This is the Chairman's District, District 6. Again, lots of water and sewer, lots of pump stations, lots of road improvements. Councilmember Monteleone, even though it looks a little barren there, the challenge, actually it's a good thing. Much of the north end of District 7 is largely new, largely CDDs. The infrastructure requirements are not nearly as bad as they are on the south end of her district. You know, the areas around Bush Boulevard and Fowler Avenue. So the bulk of the work that you will see from us in those districts are on the south end of Councilmember Monteleone's district, largely stormwater, you know, wastewater stuff. We got some sidewalk improvements up there, but we try and spread the wealth as best we can. These are the enterprise departments: water, wastewater, parking, solid waste. As many of you know, solid waste has come back from the brink, come back from the abyss. We have restored solid waste to a position fiscally that is on the road to recovery. We had to make some tough decisions with your help. We have done that. The reserves are healthy in solid waste. You know, the rating agencies are looking favorably upon us. We fixed a department that needed fixing, and it is running well now. This is something that all of you should be very, very proud of. Over the last 3 years, we have seen 2 rating increases from the rating agencies. Fiscal year in 11 and 12, we were upgraded to a AA+, and as you saw in the paper just recently, Fitch just raised us to a AAA rated water and wastewater system. That is a big deal. That is a really big deal. It means that the cost of borrowing is cheaper for us, but more importantly, it sends a signal to Wall Street and to the investors who would purchase our bonds that this is a city that is conservative in its approach, that is fiscally conservative, and most importantly, certainly in the water and wastewater, is a very well-run, efficient series of departments. And I got to give Brad Baird and Anthony Casper and Mike Herr a lot of credit. We were on a call with Fitch 3 weeks ago and made the case as to why we should be a AAA rated agency. Obviously, Sonia Little and Mike Perry have done an amazing job to prepare us for that point, and it was great news for us when we received the announcement that we were a AAA rated agency. So to the Water and Sewer Department, to Brad and to Anthony, great job. I think the comments that Fitch published really talks about how significant this is. I couldn't be prouder of that. So this is where we are. I think this budget supports our 3 primary goals as an administration: changing Tampa's economic DNA, continuing to invest and empower our neighborhoods, and keeping our streets safe. It exceeds by 5% the fund balance. We are on the path to recovery. We are no longer tapping reserves. We are putting money back into reserves, and at the same time, we are able to pay our employees. As many of you know, we've got a 3-year contract with our bargaining units. The pay increases for that 3-year contract were 2, 2.5, and then 3.5 in the next year. We will do the same for our employees this year who are not part of the bargaining unit. So they will be paid as well. They do an amazing job. They really are the ones that make all of us look good, and they deserve everything that we can give them. Obviously, I can't give them all that I would like to give them, but I will make sure that they are rewarded to the extent possible, and I'm profoundly grateful for what they do for us. So council members, this is your budget. It's balanced. In spite of all that we have been through as a city, I think we are well prepared for the next chapter in Tampa's existence. We are leading the state in a number of new jobs created as a Tampa Bay area. I think over 10 years, south of Atlanta, this will be the economic engine that leads the Southeast out of this. We are in a good position right now. This is a conservative budget. This doesn't allow government to grow exponentially. We target our investments based on where the needs are. We're making up for a lot of deferred investments that we haven't been able to do for the last 5 years. We're using a combination of general revenues and commercial paper. I think it is smart. I think it is appropriate. I think it is the right path. I think our citizens and our neighbors will be happy with this budget, and I would hope that you all would agree. That being said, I submit this to you on behalf of all these people that are here behind me, who every day get up and do an amazing job. And I am thankful, and I know you are, for the service that they give to this city. I wouldn't be here being able to present this to you without them, and certainly I am grateful for their efforts. So, council members, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here. Enjoy this. We will hand these out to you right now, and thank you for all that you do to help this city achieve what we are capable of achieving. It's a great time for us. I say many times, this is Tampa's time, and I truly believe that. And I think out of this period will emerge a city that will be the envy of the nation, and you all will be a big part of it. So thank you, and thanks for another great year.
Thank you, Mayor. We're really appreciative.